Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and we have the official sneak peek now that mirrors the one we saw not that long ago in the Manila release with Danny Koo at the sort of event for Marvel's 80th anniversary. And this one reads, ready to phase into the V540 update. We know one mutant who might. And then it's the exact same clip that we saw before, except now it's in a much higher definition. And although there isn't anything new to glean from it, for the most part, for the majority of it, there is one particular thing that you can see that was either too difficult to see in the original because it was so blurry, or it was actually added in. And it's actually right here at the end when the Sentinels appear. Right there, if you pause it, you can see that there's a hand, and you can blow it up and see that the hand is, of course, a yellow glove, which matches perfectly for Kitty Pryde. So we already knew that we were going to be getting Kitty Pryde because of Lockheed, but now this makes even more sense, and you can actually see that Lockheed starts to glow just before Kitty Pryde touches him. He has no glow right now, and then when you pause, well, you gotta pause it right at the right time, but basically, yeah, if you pause it at the right time, he has this yellow glow around him, which probably means that she's going to fade, that she's phasing in, and she's going to make him intangible in order to pull him out. So what does this exactly mean? I'm not quite sure. I think this is just meant to tease Kitty Pryde because of her phasing abilities and because of the fact that she can move through objects, and most notably and most famously, she moves through walls and moves through floors and ceilings. But it could mean something else, because this is obviously a danger room setting, because you see the Sentinels sort of hologram in. And if we hop over to the Mobra, or sorry, if we hop over to the Netmarble forum really quickly, we see that although it's kind of cut off here, we do have this post here. Greetings, agents. This is CM Fragment. I've been receiving information regarding a mysterious creature roaming around. I've tracked down its last known location. It led me to a dark, spacious room, which we know would be the danger room, where the creature can be seen. I approached it to make sure that it was the creature reported, but as you got closer, something happened. Sentinels appeared for a brief moment. Then they realized it was a mismatched hologram, which matches with the danger room settings. But then the most surprising thing was that a smooth hand came out of nowhere and grabbed the creature out of the room. Whose hand was that? We know it is Kitty Pryde's. I need to get to the bottom of this quickly. So we're absolutely certain that we're going to be getting an X-Men update. Now, although there's really nothing else that you can glean from the video itself, there was some pretty hilarious suggestions that were made by members of my Twitch chat. So I do want to go through them just pretty briefly. First of all, if you pause the video fast enough over here, you can see the shadow of Professor X, because he's fallen out of his wheelchair and he needs help, and his life alert isn't working. So future fighters, be on guard for Professor X. When you see him fallen over, run to him and stand over him for 5 seconds so that he can get back up into his chair and he can be safe. Secondly, if you pause right here, you can see that there are 3 flames in separate boxes, which obviously means that we're going to be getting a loot box for Pyro, and Pyro will be the new tier 3 character in Marvel Future Fight, which is very exciting. And then lastly, this was pointed out to me, there are 3 Sentinels, so it's obviously must mean without a shadow of a doubt that we are getting Sentinel tier 3, but furthermore, because the Sentinel is holding up 4 fingers, we may be getting Sentinel tier 4. So this is some really amazing information. I have to give it up for the outstanding investigative work of my fans, you guys. I couldn't do this without you, and I am, shocked and in awe more and more each time we get a sneak peek because of your level of insight and your level of attention to detail. It's just outstanding. Now I want to actually say something of value that's not just a massive joke, and I want to talk about what I think Kitty Pryde is going to be like and how she's going to play. Because I've said previously in videos, and this also relates to characters like Mystique, I don't really know how Netmarble is going to illustrate their powers properly, and I really would hate for Mystique, if she comes to the game, and or Kitty Pryde to just be a support character. Now, I like support characters. I really like Thing, and I think his tier 2 support is very creative, and I think there are, really great ways to make characters like Victorious, but the character themselves has to be interesting. Victorious is probably the absolute best example, because Victorious is a strong standalone character, and she has an ability, her leadership, that applies a specific bonus, a specific synergy to one character, Dr. Doom. And then on the other hand, Victorious also has the value of being a character who can be put on any team to provide a bonus to anyone. So she really has the ultimate type of design as a support character. Not only is she strong as an individual character, but she has benefits for either one specific character to keep that synergy flavor, but also, generally speaking, support powers. So that is the best. Probably the worst designed support character is Waif, because she is weak as a regular standalone character, and we've discussed that. And although she does have a very cool individual synergy with Namor, which I really like, her tier 2 passive is pretty lackluster, and it doesn't apply to enough characters, and it's also got the weakest stat bonus line. So it's a little bit underwhelming, especially compared to all the strong support characters we have nowadays. And I mean, even Coulson's better than she is, and he's free to play. So it doesn't really make any sense. So hopefully, if Kitty Pryde is a support character, they will do a good job of also making her strong on her own. And then, of course, that also goes for any future characters like Mystique. I do want to say now, before we get into the actual powers of Kitty Pryde and how they could be expressed in Marvel Future Fight, I saw a really clever post on Reddit that I have to give credit. I'm sorry I didn't catch who it was, and I'm not going to look it up right now, but you know who you are if you're watching this, or if the person... Anyways, you know who you are. Show them this if you know who they are on Reddit. They said that in the first X-Men update of the year, it was all combats because it was Sabretooth, Warpath, and Juggernaut. The second X-Men update of the year was all blast. It was Jubilee, Iceman, and Bishop. So now it's going to be all speed types. How effing cool is that? It's a brilliant little piece of, like, just obvious symbol, like obvious pattern, but it just fits so perfectly well. And if you were going to ask me, I would absolutely say Kitty is most likely going to be a speed type because she's not strong enough to be a combat type. She obviously can't be universal because mutants aren't universal in Marvel Future Fight, and she's not going to be blast because she doesn't have any sort of energy projection or any sort of projectiles at all. She's a hand-to-hand fighter, so it has to be speed. And if there's going to be one speed, they're probably going to make it all speed. So I really hope that this person's prediction is right. I think it's an extremely clever prediction, and I really like it, so I had to share it with you guys. As far as Kitty Pryde goes, how can they really express her power level? And if you're wondering who the hell Kitty Pryde is, well, we talked about her a little bit in the previous video, but she's basically a younger member of the X-Men who came as a teenager. She was one of the youngest members of the team, and over the years and over different issues, she has developed into a bit of a leadership role. Now, I don't think many mutants, if any, actually have the leadership tag, and I'm talking the leadership tag as part of the abilities in the details page. But if anyone was going to get it, and I think Cyclops is missing it, but he absolutely deserves it, Kitty Pryde also deserves it because she is a great leader for the X-Men, like Storm, like Cyclops. And on top of being a leader, she has the ability to make herself intangible in a way that allows her to phase through things. Now, she isn't 100% intangible the way that some other characters can become. She can be hit by certain things, and even though it goes through her, it deals damage to her, and there have been different fights where she's had run-ins with enemies who can hurt her even though she is in her phasing state. But the interesting thing about Kitty Pryde is if you look at her evolution in the comics, when she's first introduced, and again, it may be because she's younger at the time, her power level is quite weak, meaning that, you know, she can phase through a wall, but she can't go hours and hours, you know, running through walls, phasing over and over and over again, and it's very difficult for her to phase anything other than her entire body at the same time. Just like just think of it as an on or an off switch for your whole body. On the other hand, in more recent runs, and this is the really cool stuff about, this is like the really cool thing about Kitty Pryde, more recently when they've tried to amp up her power level, she can do things like stand on one side of a wall and she phases her fist through the wall, and then as her fist is going through, like as it exits the other side of the wall, she unphases her fist and it punches people. So she's literally, it looks like she's punching the wall, but her fists are phasing in and out at the precise moments to punch people, you know, and basically hurt them. She's had moves where she like jumps at someone and phases through them, and then unphases her hand to grab something that they're holding, and then phases everything through. And keep in mind, in addition, Kitty Pryde, what she's holding also will phase. So that's why in the sneak peek, when she grabs Lockheed, she can phase them both through the ground into wherever she wants them to go. So really, it's going to be interesting. I don't want to make too big of a deal out of Kitty Pryde because I don't think she's going to be a game-changing character in Marvel Future Fight. This is more of just the nerd in me, the comic book fan in me, the Marvel X-Men fan in me. But, you know, there have been versions of Kitty Pryde that can phase an entire planet. So I believe in one issue she phases a planet because something's going to go through it. And so she basically makes the planet, she phases the planet so that it's, you know, it's intangible basically, and then the thing, I don't know, it's like an asteroid or something, passes through it, and then she turns it back to normal. Like, that's insane. That level of power is absolutely absurd compared to I phased through a few walls and I'm tired now for the rest of the day. Mommy and Daddy, can I go drink a juice box, have some chocolate milk, and go to sleep? As far as how they can express her powers in the game, I think because of her phasing ability, she's very often illustrated as being like a hard counter to physical characters. So in the movies, you guys have seen she kind of plays tricks and she teases Juggernaut. She also uses her phasing abilities in the comics to threaten, or actually in some cases to phase people into walls and then leave them there, which I don't know if it either kills them or it just makes them, like, it leaves them stuck there in between the wall. But I think having either physical immunity straight up as a passive, or having physical immunity that can be turned on, you know, by getting hit, although that's a lot weaker, I think that is something that Netmarble could absolutely do because they don't really like to toy with the power level of giving people flat immunities, but I absolutely think a character like Colossus should have, you know, massive immunity, like 90% physical immunity, and he doesn't, but that's okay. But he does have decreased damage received from supervillain types, so that sort of illustrates in a way. She could also have something like immunity to fracture. She could have decreased damage received like Colossus, but I think having physical immunity, possibly having the physical immunity leadership like Colossus, like Luke Cage, would also make sense. It just needs to be stronger, and it needs to ignore penetration. I think that's a really important thing that Netmarble has to start realizing, is that these immunities, these individual damage type immunities, physical immunity, or in Bishop's case, energy immunity, they don't matter if the characters have penetration, and pretty much all the strong characters have penetration, because you don't need immunities for PvE content. You have iframes, so you know there's really no point in having energy immunity if you're fighting in PvP and you iframe and Captain Marvel can still punch you and use a CTP of destruction to penetrate. It just doesn't make any sense. So they really need to use the CTP of regen and say that it's not able to be penetrated when that ability activates. As far as characters go, this is the really interesting thing. I think absolutely by far Ancient One is probably the highest or the closest fit for Kitty. And it's really on her 4th skill, and we've never seen a skill like this since Ancient One, by the way. I think she's the only character that has an active invisibility skill. Now, well, Thing has an active invisibility skill with a delay, but before Thing, I don't think anyone had it since Ancient One. Spider-Man 2099 and Invisible Woman, they have a passive effect that activates invisibility for a few seconds when they get hit, but Ancient One is actually still quite strong for things like Shadowland, even though their damage is very weak, because they can activate this invisibility for 5 seconds, and it's on a 5-second cooldown, because it's a 10-second cooldown skill, so with maximum skill cooldown, you can spam this to be invisible 100% of the time. So this is a really, really cool, it says invincible, but it's actually invisible. There we go, invisibility. So I really, really dig the invisibility, and I think you absolutely have to see Kitty Pryde having this. I think she should honestly have both an active and a passive. So she should have the active ability on at least one of her skills, like Ancient One or like Thing, and then she should also have the passive invisibility the way that Spider-Man 2099 does. And to really quickly show you the Spider-Man 2099, wow, Jesus, it just bumps me right out of the page. Okay, just to quickly show you the passive effect for Spider-Man 2099, I think Kitty Pryde absolutely needs this. It may only trigger when she gets hit by energy or physical damage, but I think this absolutely needs to happen. I gotta punch them once, and then boom, there. So I'm invisible for just a second, and then now we're back to the way things are with her not being invisible. The second thing I think is probably or possibly could happen. I'm speculating that could happen for, why does it kick me all the way out? That's so weird. Why doesn't it bring me back to this page? So I'm here and it kicks, okay, whatever. It only does that when you go to the skill preview. The last thing I think that they could take is either the persistent summon of someone like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So instead of being a gigantic dinosaur, it would be Lockheed, who is an alien that looks like a dragon, flying around, just kind of spewing a bit of fire, doing a little bit of damage, leaving some burn on the ground. Not necessarily, you know, OP, but allows you to, you know, relax and not have as much tension on you because they draw aggro. So you can be over here as Kitty Pryde doing your thing. Maybe a couple enemies are attacking you, but for the most part, they're focusing on Lockheed. I'm not really sure. Or on the flip side, they could do something like Weapon Hex. And I honestly think they should do more of this because Weapon Hex is a very cool character, but basically having a persistent summon that doesn't have targeting and that applies to the whole team. So it actually is part of her Witchcraft passive, which applies to all allies. But it'd be really cool if Kitty Pryde goes on your team and then Lockheed is on, you know, is with you, you know, no matter who you're switching to. If they wanted to make it even more synergistic and really just apply it to the X-Men, they could have that ability only apply to the X-Men. So if you bring Kitty along with, let's say, you know, I don't know, Captain America and Sharon Rogers, then Lockheed would only show up for Kitty. But if you bring Kitty along with Gambit and Colossus, suddenly Gambit's got Lockheed and Colossus has Lockheed, and maybe Lockheed provides like a 10% HP bonus to whoever's, you know, whoever you're using, or maybe Lockheed heals you over time because of his empathy, or I don't know, something entirely. But I just think that would be a really cool thing. I'm actually pretty hype, as always, for X-Men. I know some of you guys aren't because of the acquisition methods, but damn, I think the X-Men are some of the most creative characters in Marvel Future Fight. I mean, there are a couple of sort of vanilla type characters like Phantom X or Domino, but pretty much every other mutant that's been designed and brought into the game is so unique, has so many cool different effects. Even characters like Warpath, an Angel, Archangel, they feel so unique and they play so uniquely unlike any other character. So I'm really excited to see what becomes of Kitty Pryde. Hopefully she'll be a speed type. Hopefully we'll get sort of a little bit of a mini speed renaissance with this update. We'll get a speed tier 3, so start stocking up on those speed tier 3 books. Also, not necessarily something you have to do, but you could start farming Rogue Bios and Cyclops Bios from the Epic Quest. I didn't give you guys this tip last time, I forgot, I apologize, but farming Rogue's Bios and farming Cyclops' Bios may be a good idea because they're probably going to be getting something. At the very least, Rogue should be getting something for X-Men Gold if that's what it's based on. So hit me up in the comments, let me know what you think about Kitty Pryde. I know I made 2 10-minute videos about one sneak peek. What have I done? The universe is collapsing in on itself. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you later today. Take care.